Welcome to the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, where it is never too early for fantasy football. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Alex.
As always, thank you for downloading, listening, liking, and commenting on our podcast videos. Please join our community by subscribing to us on the socials. Our handle on all platforms is at N2E Fantasy. We are also available on all major podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy. Alex, what do we have on today's show?
On today's episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, we will be covering the latest league news out there. So, people on injury reports, people already taken off injury reports, people released, people signed. We'll cover all of that for you as of today's date. So, starting with this league news. Jeff, why don't you talk about our favorite quarterback for the Browns?
All right. So it is usual this time of year to have a bunch of players go on the camp or the preseason PUP and NFI lists, and they usually work their way back to injury over the upcoming weeks and are ready to go for the season, or they go on the PUP/IR after that. So, as you said, quarterback, the only one on there is one of Alex's heroes in the Browns, quarterback Deshaun Watson, who has the Achilles tear, and he is on the PUP list, which is interesting because that means that he's on the route to staying on the PUP list and missing at least the first 4 weeks, or he'll be activated sometime in camp and ready to go. Alex, do you think we'll see Deshaun Watson in any games at all this year?
I would say negative 15% chance that we'll see him in any.
So we'll get to Pickett in a little while. He's out with a little banged up right now. Flacco's old, and then the two young guys. What if those two young guys sputter out, the two older guys get hurt, and you're left with a fifth quarterback being needed?
They don't want to pay Deshaun Watson a dime if they can avoid it. So they'll put him on IR. They won't play him. He probably won't get any of his bonuses that are tied to playing time. And they'll hope that he does something dumb so they can waive him.
Absolutely. He, fortunately for him, signed a fully guaranteed contract. I don't even think there's any incentives in it. I think it was a straight up $250 million deal over 5 years, and it's obviously been restructured a few times since then. So, all right. So we can hop over to the running backs here. And as expected, the Chargers placed running back Najee Harris with his eye injury on the NFI list. And also the Bengals initially had placed their running back Zach Moss on the NFI list with a neck injury. He's already been activated, or I guess he doesn't even have to be activated since it's the NFI list, but he's already been released by the team. So that is a really interesting aspect there that does create more opportunities for Pirine and Brooks behind Brown. And Alex, what do you think about what that does for the rookie and the veteran?
So I know that I have Chase Brown lower this year than consensus, but last year I was very much in on Chase Brown. I thought he was the better running back between him and Zach Moss. Zach Moss, I think, he suffered a few injuries. He's also seemingly lost a step or two. They brought in Taj Brooks, who the offensive coordinator and the head coach really, really like. So, someone who perfectly balances with Chase Brown. I think Chase Brown will get less carries than he did, less touches than he did last year when he was getting like a rate of 97% of the touches from week 9 on. I don't think it'll be that high this year. So someone else has to come in, and it's going to be Taj Brooks with a little sprinkle of Samaje Perine, who might get some backup work on third downs and passing downs if Chase Brown needs a spell or two.
We will see how they deploy their backfield. It will be one of the more interesting stories going into the year. Speaking of interesting backfields, your Houston Texans backfield is very interesting right now because the formerly top two pieces, and this is before they signed Nick Chubb and others in camp, but Damian Pierce went on the pup with an undisclosed injury, and the Texans running back Joe Mixon went on the NFI list with a foot injury. I know there was some confusion between you and I why it was the NFI list because we thought it was still his ankle from last year, but it's been reported that this injury happened while working out and it is a little more serious, and he'll be on the NFI list longer than they had initially anticipated, which was only like a week or two. So, what are your thoughts on where this is going with the Texans' backfield here?
We still don't know 100% why he's on the NFI. I do know that they're not really upset with him. They still expect him to be back soon. It's going to probably be the timeline is going to be right up to the week 1 window. So there will potentially be question whether he plays week 1 or not, or is 100% for week 1. So that tells me that it was a pretty moderately significant injury if it's knocked him out this much in training camp in the offseason. They
Because
did
he missed
sign,
minicamp too, right?
yep. So Pierce is out as well. Pierce will probably come back before Mixon at this point. They signed Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is not 100% ready to go. He's looked very sluggish to observers in camp so far. Um, they still have Dare Abungawala, and he might still stick around as long as the other guys potentially will be on the NFI and PUP. And they have Woody Marks. They have who is the most secure person on this roster because he just got drafted. So he's someone that is the only one we know for sure that will stick around. Nick Chubb and Damian Pierce, if they're both healthy, one of them will probably end up going. And Jawar Jordan seems to be the number one performing running back in camp so far. So, I mean, that's pretty much the vast majority of the running backs there right now.
Yeah, we'll see how that fully shakes out. But yeah, I think the rookies, especially in camp, have a lot more to prove early on, and it's good news if you're hearing good reports for them because there's going to be rookies that we don't hear a lot about that may not be as good of news. So, all right. So, keeping with the Texans, but shifting positions here to the wide receivers, the Texans, as expected, placed Tank Dell on the PUP list. And so, with his knee injury, he's expected to miss most of, if not all of, the 2025 season. Alex, have you heard any updates on Tank Dell?
The only thing I've heard is he's doing well in his rehab, but still no timeline. So,
Yeah, I would
like you
expect him
said,
to miss this whole
yeah,
year.
I would be shocked if he's even back by like playoffs. I'd be
Yeah.
shocked if he's back before next season.
Yeah, I just hate speaking indefinites when we don't really know where he is on his rehab and recovery because it could be one of those. Remember, Cam Akers with his Achilles, he only missed like 10 weeks. He came back from an Achilles tear, something ridiculous like that for the playoffs.
You love you some Cam Akers.
I do, but that's the one that I'm referencing because of how quickly he came back from that injury, which is way shorter than expected.
Yeah, well, former Texan Jonta Foreman or whatever, he took like 2 years to make it back after an Achilles tear. Like it took him a while to start putting up production.
Right. Yeah, and Cam Akers is a former Texan as well, so got lots of former Texans here with injury history.
You know
Um,
who's not a former Texan? 49ers wide receiver Brandon Ayuk, who is currently on the PUP list for he hasn't recovered in time from his knee injury yet.
yeah, it sounds like he will begin the season on it, or at least has a shot to begin the season on the PUP list, missing the first 4 games as well. Does that lower your expectations for Brandon Ayuk this year?
I mean, obviously, if he starts the year on PUP, that's what, 6 weeks out?
It's 4
Or is
now.
it 4? It's 4 weeks. So that's 4 weeks he's not getting stats, so that will obviously lower it. I think on a per game status, I think per game would still be good numbers when he's back. But we
Does it
don't
hurt
know.
him missing camp again and missing the reps,
Yeah.
or you're not
Yeah,
as concerned?
it does hurt. Um, I am less concerned. It's because he knows his quarterback. That's about it.
All right. So also 49ers, wide receiver Ricky Pearsall was placed with a knee injury on PUP list, but he's already been activated and is participating in camp right now. So he should be good to go. Also not on this list here. It does seem like they're a little thin at wide receiver. So I think Juwan Jennings missed the PUP list, but he's dealing with an injury that's carried over from minicamp as well. But shifting gears here to the Broncos wide receiver, A.T. Perry is out with an undisclosed injury. And that's only notable because the Broncos have such a thin wide receiver core. We just don't really know who's going to be the producers from that behind Courtland Sutton. Packers wide receiver Christian Watson went on with his torn ACL recovery as well, so he's on the PUP list. Browns wide receiver David Bell, who probably won't be rostered for much longer, went on the NFI list with a hip injury. But here's some of the bigger one here. The Buccaneers wide receiver Chris Godwin had a second procedure on his ankle in the spring, which would explain why you had thought that he was coming back a lot later than I had thought. But we didn't really know that he had his second procedure on his ankle. And we don't really have a timeline for him either. Has there been a timeline that you've heard of for Chris Godwin?
All I know is they are iffy whether he plays week 1 or not. I haven't gotten any sense it's anything more detailed than that. So probably 50-50 he plays week 1 or not. I don't think they need to rush him back is another thing that's been thrown out there because they're pretty deep at wide receiver and pretty solid with their tight end option there too. That three awesome running backs. Like they're very deep at running back as well, so there's no need for them to rush right away to get him back.
No, I would agree with that as well, but the fact that he's 50-50 and not doubtful for week 1 is it's probably a good thing for his outlook for the season.
Yeah, I think he'll be more effective if he's fully healthy than if he's forced to play every single game not healthy.
I think per game basis he's going to be underdrafted and undervalued in fantasy leagues this year.
Well, that's how I feel about Ayuk. So we both like those guys coming off the injury.
Yeah, we just saw how Ayuk did last offseason with no training camp, and he looked mediocre
Well,
at best after that.
drafting these guys like 10th round or later is worth it. Drafting
Yeah,
these guys round 4 or 5 was not. So it's just cost versus upside.
that is fair. And the last wide receiver on our list here is Patriots wide receiver Matt Collins went on PUP with an undisclosed injury, but has been activated. And then we'll switch over to tight ends.
Hold on.
Patriots tight
Hold
end
on.
Austin
Hold
Hooper.
on. You don't want
Yeah, go
you don't
ahead.
want to talk about Matt Collins and like day one being back, they already were using him as the number one X receiver already. I thought you would get excited about that because you like Matt Collins a lot more than I do.
Yeah, I just don't see how he really fits in long term. And the only reason for that is because I see Kyle Williams, Pop Douglas, and Stefan Diggs, who tore his ACL right around the same time as Brandon Ayuk, but it seems like his recovery is relatively complete based on early reports from camp. So it's an
Well, he
interesting recovery.
he probably rehabbed with some interesting pink substances that helped him get through his pain management a little bit more.
He
But
doesn't
we
have a
lost.
finite number, an infinite number of games left. He his finite number of games left in his career now.
But as far as the Mac Hollins character, I think
He is a
Kyle Williams.
character.
I think Kyle Williams will eventually be the starting X receiver, but I think Mac Hollins actually has a reasonable chance to begin the year as the vertical X guy. Because Kyle Williams needs a little bit of refinement. Max Hollins, I think he is what he is. He's a situational deep threat. He's a good locker room guy, and I think he'll be useful for a bit. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's worth a spot start here or there, or like daily fantasy being a good play. I just wouldn't trust him for the whole season.
Yeah, I can concur with that. But also not a good play is his teammate Austin Hooper, who was placed on the PUP list, also already activated. So it seems like anyone with minor ailments, they Patriots just were like, whatever, we're just going to stash them on the pup for a week until they get to 100%. Could have been conditioning issues too. We don't really know because they didn't say. All right. So that makes us hop over to the Bengals here. Eric All, their second year tight end, is on the PUP list with his ACL recovery as well. Panthers placed tight end Tommy Tremble with a back injury on PUP list. The Bills had Dawson Knox on the NFI list, which I would love to know a little bit more of why it was the NFI list, but he's already been activated from that, so I don't think we'll hear much about that. One of your buddies here, the Dolphins tight end Darren Waller. I know Alex loves some Darren Waller here, but he has the undisclosed designation, and it is hypothesized that this is just a conditioning, and anyone that hadn't been ramping up in the offseason typically goes on this list until they're fully up to par. Any comments on Darren Waller before I hop onto our Saints?
I was hoping they'd win the competition for particular free agents, tight ends that signed elsewhere, but we'll talk about that after we cut through all the injuries. I don't think Darren Waller's going to be worth adding, in my opinion, unless you get him like super duper duper late or super duper cheap. He's not really worth anything.
Come on, he'll be better than Jake Ferguson.
He will not. There's no way. There's no
There
way.
is a way.
Like
There is a way.
you lost that bet before a season even started, man.
Nah. No, no, no. Then we can go on to the Saints here. We have a couple of tight ends that are on the PUP list with knee injuries, and that's Taysom Hill and Foster Moreau. Taysom Hill is going to be an interesting person this year because I don't know how quickly he can get back and play at the style that he's used to playing at. So I know he's a fantasy darling just because he plays every position and scores points for the tight end position. And it's kind of like a little bit of a cheat code. All right. Anything else on our PUP/injury lists right now?
Not that comes to mind right now.
All right. So it is also common to have surprise releases and retirements. So at this phase right here, there's a bunch of players like the Jets running back Zach Evans, who retires at the age of 24, decides he does not want to play anymore and doesn't want to put his body through camp. So that's kind of what happened here. Any parting words for Zach Evans? Because we should never mention that name again.
It's weird to see him retire at the age of 24 because he's someone I thought could have at least broken out as a running back two on a team. So I guess it's fully over for him at this point. Have we already talked about Noah Fant?
Not yet. He got released by the Broncos very early in camp, before camp even started. And I just lied. It's not the Broncos. He's a former Bronco, but the Seahawks are the ones that released him this time around.
And
He did try out for the
he
Broncos.
went on a tour for three different squads, and decided to sign with the Bengals. So does that interfere with Mike Gesicki's outlook this year?
A little bit, not a ton, but a little bit. I think the third receiver takes a hit with the Bengals now, so I think right now it goes Chase, Higgins, Gesicki, Fant as the top four pass catching options for the Bengals.
Yeah,
But
I
I could be wrong.
I'd agree with that, but man, do they need offensive line and a lot of defensive help, and they decided to get a second tight end who is basically a very similar tight end to Mike Gesicki.
Yeah, and last year was the first year, if I'm not mistaken, that Joe Burrow has really used a tight end. So
Yep.
very interesting. But Alex, it's time for us to say a little bit of a sad, somber moment here. One of your favorite players, and this is legit. Running back, wide receiver, kick returner, Cordell Patterson is released by the Steelers. So this probably ends the 34-year-old's career. Pretty close.
Is he only 34? I thought he was like 42.
I have no idea. He's timeless.
Timeless.
He's 34. He just turned 34 on St. Patrick's Day.
Oh man.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he was very versatile. He might still catch on with the team somewhere, but
The
I
Texans need
don't
a running back.
know. And we have so
Slash
many
kick
special
returner.
we have so many special teams players. Your boy Braxton Berrios probably doesn't make the roster because we have so many wide receivers and returners. Hmm.
Yeah, why'd you have to go sign Braxton Berrios if you were going to draft two more receivers on top of it?
Dude,
It's not fair to him.
he was never going to be used as a wide receiver. He was only brought in as a special teamer, and you can tell because of how little they paid him.
Do we think? I mean, I will keep going back to this. The Falcons could use a wide receiver over and over and over again, and they would be doing Michael Penix a disservice if they're not hunting for bottom of the roster receivers on deep teams and trying to poach them or get them afterwards. Because I don't like their receiving core at all.
But
But
I've heard they've been using Pitts as a wide receiver instead of a tight end.
interesting. But then what do they do at tight end?
I don't know. I've trade for one of the Steelers guys. Get Fryermuth out.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. They're trying to make the playoffs pretty hardcore this year, so and get a playoff win, which a lot of experts are thinking that's going to be the case now. So
Who,
we'll
the
see.
Steelers? The
Yeah,
Steelers?
yeah,
Oh.
I've been hearing a lot of Steelers love lately.
They're trying to turn a top 9, top 10 tight end in my boy, what's his I can't even remember his
Into a
name now.
fullback, Johnny Smith.
Johnny Smith. They're trying
You
to turn
must
him
not love
into
him that much.
they're trying to turn him into the starting running back, basically.
Fullback,
It's
yeah.
crazy. Well,
He's
they
going to be
say
their Kyle
fullback.
Juszczyk.
Yeah, they say fullback, but they've put him as the sole back several times, and it's because uh, Mr. Johnson that everybody loves, Caleb Johnson, cannot pass block to save anyone's life. Apparently, he gets bull rushed and knocked over every single time. So everyone who loves Caleb Johnson, a little bit of concern there. He's not going to be on the field on third downs or passing downs at all at this rate.
Hey, we have some league mates that really like Caleb Johnson, and I just don't see it. But that's okay. That's okay. People are allowed to have bad opinions, as I've said previously.
Well, I've been against his running style. Like he's got a great opportunity, but I don't like his running
Yeah,
style at all.
I do think they really like Warren as well. So we'll see. We'll see what the role looks like without Najee this year. All right. So that brings us to our last release, and the Bengals released Zach Moss, as we had mentioned earlier. So that's just recapping the PUP list and then released, or the NFI list and then released. All right. And then we've had a bunch of injuries here to begin camp, and I think Alex feels like this is the most injuries we've ever had in ever. But it has been pretty bad. The first one that popped up was the Titans quarterback, Will Levis. He's undergoing season-ending shoulder surgery. And I was sure to send Alex a photo of Will Levis's shoulder popping out, and he's like, "What did I just see?" Um, and yeah, so that was an interesting Instagram photo. If everyone hasn't seen it yet, I would go check it out. But that wasn't the only loss by the Titans. They also lose wide receiver Treylon Burks to a broken collarbone, and he was waived injured. So that means that he reverted to the IR. And his 2025 at this current moment is over. And obviously that could change if they reach an injury settlement, but we'll see what happens there with the Titans. What do you think of these two Titans losses?
I'm not sure Will Levis will ever turn into a starting quarterback, so I don't know how much that really matters. But if his shoulder gets fixed and he gets time to rest it, he could be a serviceable backup. Maybe someone down the line might give him a chance to be an interim starter. Traylon Burks drafted to be AJ Brown's replacement and hasn't been able to stay on the field. And when he's on the field, doesn't look very good, doesn't look very consistent. So both these guys seem like mega bust, and moving on from them is probably in the best interest of both of the Titans in this case.
Falcons could use another wide receiver. Just saying.
Yep.
I don't
Speaking of
even
the
like the
Falcons,
Falcons, but I could see exactly what they need, and they're not doing anything about it.
speaking of the Falcons, Darnell Mooney's been banged up in camp. He's got a busted up shoulder, but it looks like he'll only miss a few weeks. There's a small chance it interferes with his week one status, but most likely he'll be back for that.
Yeah, yeah. This is that wide receiver core that I said that they need more, and they're actually losing stuff. So that is something to keep an eye out here. It could be London, Pitts, and Penix week one, and the rest could be a question. Bijan Robinson could be playing wide receiver, and Algier could be playing running back to begin the year. And Bijan has been taking some snaps at wide receiver, I believe I read as well. So that's an interesting dynamic there. But something to keep an eye on is quarterback Matthew Stafford's back injury. He is on pace for week one, but the fact that they're saying that and it seems a little more serious is cause for some concern. So just keep an eye on Matthew Stafford. And then also keep an eye on Browns quarterback Kenny Pickett, who is out a week or more with a hamstring injury. So we'll see how quickly he can get back into the race against Joe Flacco and Shador Sanders and Dylan Gabriel for the starting job of the Cleveland Browns. Anything on our two quarterbacks before we hop over to a few other injuries here?
No, I just want to keep an eye on Matthew Stafford because I've been saying he's taken a beating his time in the NFL, especially with the Lions, and he is getting older, and I think all of it's catching up. So it is something to keep an eye on, and they might struggle early in the season as well.
Sounds like a plan. He's not one of the quarterbacks that I would be looking to draft this year. Yeah, he doesn't offer any rushing ability, even with two stud wide receivers. So unless he's going to throw for 40 plus touchdowns, he's not on my fantasy radar right now. All right. Guy that was on people's fantasy radar, though, was Ravens tight end Isaiah Likely. He had foot surgery for a fractured foot and will miss approximately 4 to 6 weeks. And that will put his week one in jeopardy. And at the very least, will put him on a snap count to begin the season as he gets back into football shape. Alex, does this do anything for Mark Andrews for you?
Oh boy. Not especially. I'm
All
not
right.
super big on the Ravens at all this year. I know everyone's like, oh, they're probably the shoe-in for the AFC or whatever, but I'm just not big. I'm not big on them right now. And I honestly, although I don't expect Hopkins to get very many stats, I do think he's going to overlap with Andrews and likely when Likely's back. So it's going to be hard. to trust the three of those for touchdowns and short yardage and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how everything fits together. All right. One of my favorites, Seattle running back Kenny McIntosh towards ACL, and his season and likely his career with the Seahawks is likely over. I always liked him because Charbonnet and Walker always appear to get injured. So I don't know if we'll ever be talking about Kenny McIntosh again. So he was the healthy one, but an ACL tear in camp is one of the more devastating injuries. And then, as I alluded to earlier, Juan Jennings re-injures his calf. He's also looking for a new deal. Alex, do you think that this is a repeat legitimate calf injury, or do you think this is a hold-in tactic?
No, I think it's a legitimate calf injury. I don't know if he's the type of guy to actually hold out, to be honest, or hold in.
Absolutely, you guys are best friends, and you would know his personality and his motives
Well, they
the
paid him
best.
previously as the third wide receiver there. They gave him at the time a pretty good contract for both sides, and now he's outperformed it. They will pay him. That he knows they'll pay him. I don't think there's any real reason for him to hold out or hold in.
He's older than you think, though.
What is he, 28? 27?
Let's see here. I'm pulling up his contract right now. He's 28. So that is a little bit older. And his contract that he signed in 2024 with the 49ers was a 2-year, $11 million deal. So about 5 to 6 million per season. So on the lower side at wide receiver, especially when you consider what Gabe Davis got and others. So he is on the lower side. And if he really is going to be the wide receiver 2 or 2.5 this year, depending on what Ayuk looks like, then he obviously deserves a pay bump.
Did you see the trade request today?
I did. I was going to mention it in the camp holdouts and hold in section, but we can move that to right here. So break the news.
Micah Parsons has officially requested a trade out of Dallas, and he has posted a quite lengthy uh, post on why he requested a trade on social. And basically, it's not Jerry that runs things, it's Stephen Jones that runs things, and they have been unwilling to communicate with Micah Parsons' agent at all. And no progress has been made in uh, Micah has said that he has been a Dallas Cowboy fan for life and wanted to stay in this organization, was willing to take less money. Uh, and the Cowboys just have made no attempt to sign him, so he's done with them.
Right, we'll see what that means. We'll see if they give him a shiny new deal and repair this relationship, or I mean, obviously they would want him out of the NFC if they do trade him, and then they would want a boatload back. So who's going to give a boatload back is the question mark in the AFC. So we shall see.
That's
There's
just
no way
funny.
they're going to put Dak versus Parsons.
Even though I'm much higher on Ferguson's 2025 outlook than you are, it made no
Mhm.
sense to me that they paid Ferguson and didn't even make a contract offer to Micah Parsons. That made zero sense to me.
Absolutely. It's so funny because there's another guy in the same division. Commanders wide receiver Terry McLaurin didn't initially report to camp, and then he reported to the camp to go on PUP with an ankle injury, and then subsequently during the Hall of Fame game requests a trade. So seems like he's in a similar situation as Micah Parsons, looking for a new deal.
Oh, is there anybody out there that has both a lot of cap space and could use a lot of picks for 2026 and could use both a elite pass rusher and a wide receiver?
There has to be, but man, that's not how what you want to do. That's not what
Send
you
them
want to do right now.
send them to the Raiders, man. Boom.
New England has 60 million in cap space right now.
Yeah, I could see New
Ra-
England. I could
Raiders
see
have
New England.
38 million in cap space.
Raiders and New England could both send like a young corner back or maybe even a veteran. Sorry, not corner, wide receiver back. Both of them could potentially do that. So Raiders could send like Jacoby Myers back as
Yep,
well as
Tennessee
draft
Titans
pick.
have a lot of cap. Be interesting right now. The Jets, I could see the Jets pulling a deal for Micah Parsons. That defense would be so sick with Sauce and Micah. I mean, you have two legitimate Hall of Fame contenders right on that defense to even just begin without looking at anybody else.
And Micah and CJ Stroud are really good friends. Maybe we'll keep him in Texas.
Yeah, you guys have $10 million in cap space right now, so A, I don't like it for your cap situation, and B, you've spent a lot of capital on your defensive line already, so to move off of it would seem a little short-sighted.
Well, Micah can also play linebacker too, so I mean it would help a lot.
Yeah, but I do expect him and Terry McLaurin to stay with their respective teams at this point, even though that they've requested trades because the Commanders have to build on last year, and they really can't be giving up one of their star receivers, one of their pass catchers at this point. So they got to get their act together right now and kind of quickly. But since you mentioned it, Cowboys do extend tight end Jake Ferguson with a 4-year deal. And the Broncos extended wide receiver Courtland Sutton with a 4-year deal as well. And that Courtland Sutton deal, the average annual value isn't as high as McLaurin wanted. So, in a weird roundabout way, I think that this puts a little wrench in the plan of Terry McLaurin because it was a 4-year, $92 million deal. So that's less than $25 million per year. So that is on average of $23 million per year. And I think McLaurin already makes that. So I don't know how he could justify making more than Courtland Sutton, who's a lot younger than him at this point.
They're the same age, dude. They're not
They
pretty sure
are.
they're the same age. Yeah, I think they're both 29.
They are both 29. Wow. Courtland Sutton just, I feel like we haven't talked about him a lot. But his cap, so McLaurin's cap this year is 25.5 million. So he's making $2.5 million more than Courtland Sutton. I just don't see the negotiating. I don't see the leverage there for McLaurin. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see it right now.
Well, they're two different stylistic wide receivers because Terry McLaurin's like a really, really good deep threat. He's an ex vertical wide receiver primarily. Yes, he can do more than that, but those are the things that he really excels at. And that works really well for Jaden Daniels because Jaden Daniels is one of the best deep ball throwers already in the game. So they complement each other. But that means Terry McLaurin is hyper efficient and not getting that many targets or catches. Whereas Cortland Sutton is a big possession guy where he can be a big slot, he can be a big Z, and he moves around, catches balls over the middle of the field in high traffic and stuff like that. So they're entirely two different stylistic wide receivers. I think both are good. I think both are on a similar level. So I agree it's going to complicate things. I think he's going to get a deal similar to the money he's getting paid now, is my guess, with front loaded guarantees.
And just
Um,
longer because this is his last year, so we'll see.
yeah. There's,
He
there's
probably
no
wants just some
way
more security.
There's no way he gets a Metcalf deal. Metcalf shouldn't have even gotten that deal. That was stupid money thrown out by the Steelers because they were desperate. Apparently, Pickens also wanted out of Pittsburgh, so they had to trade him, and that meant replacing him. And nobody wants to go to Pittsburgh in Arthur Smith's offense, so they had to pay the crap load out of DK to even go there.
Makes sense. All right. So we have one last section. As you had mentioned earlier, the Bengals had signed tight end Noah Fant. And this is normal here where teams will sign veterans to get a full camp in. Bengals also signed quarterback Desmond Ritter. And I think there's a good chance that he could be the backup or at least make the roster as a third string. I know they have Jake Browning as well, so with Joe Burrow. So be interesting to see there. Any thoughts on the Bengals additions? I know we talked a little bit about Fant already.
Yeah, no, not really.
All right. And then the last one was the Chargers signing running back slash kick returner Naheem Hines, who makes his NFL return after a 2-year recovery from a jet skiing knee injury that put him on the NFI list for 2 years. So we'll see what Naheem Hines has left in that backfield.
Yeah,
But they're
well,
starting to
I was gonna say he provides a different role than the other running backs on the roster because I feel like most of the running backs on the roster are power rushers, up and down straight line runners that deliver punishing blows, and he's more of a scat back, more of a receiving back who's done some return work. So he might have a clearer path to staying on the roster than potentially Vidal or Haskins. One of those guys might not make it on the roster. Honestly, Najee Harris might not make it on the roster depending on what's going on with his eyes. So we'll see how things play out in camp.
Yeah, I do think that Harbaugh wants to run both Harris and Hampton uh, kind of equally because I think that he believes his offense runs best when he has multiple backs that can handle it. And that way, if you have one of them go down, you don't really miss too much. So last year when he had J.K. and Edwards, they weren't very good. So J.K. was, but he couldn't stay healthy, and Edwards just didn't look good from the start, and also couldn't stay healthy fully. So I think he's got a whole different approach. I think this is going to only help Justin Herbert take a second year Harbaugh leap. So,
Yep.
all right. And I guess that can hop us right into, and I'm assuming you watched a little bit more of this game than I did based on our messaging. But brings us to the Chargers defeating the Lions in the very first game of the year. So that's a pretty big deal. We actually
very,
have football.
very first July game, I think, is what they said.
Yeah, because it's going to be an early kickoff this year because of where Labor Day is this year.
Yeah. No,
I
I
could see
watched the
them
whole.
moving up a week eventually if we go to an 18-week season.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind it. I mean, that means football's back sooner. I love it.
I would rather
I
it be
watched.
back Labor Day weekend.
Yeah. Well, I would rather Super Bowl to line up with a Monday holiday, which would be nice.
Well, and if you go with the two bye weeks, go 1 week earlier, then it'll be lined up with President's Day every year.
Yeah.
So that right there is the creme de la creme of scheduling. But I know it's boring for other folks. But what were some of your takeaways from the games? We'll start with the Lions side of the ball. Anything you noticed from the Lions?
So I actually watched the entire game because I was super excited that football goes back. So I was ready for it. And uh, with the Lions, they definitely look less prepared without Ben Johnson there. I thought the defense made some errors, but the defense looked way better than their offense did. In most cases, yes, it's preseason. It's almost 90 something percent backups. But I wanted to see Isaac Tesla, and I thought he did well for the short run he's in. I don't understand what their obsession with Craig Reynolds is. I don't think he's a good enough back to roster in most cases. Maybe like if you're keeping four running backs, he'd be the fourth, but they really like him as the third back. I don't understand it. It took a while for him to actually get going anywhere. Maybe that's offensive line issues, maybe that's play calling issues, whatever. Um, Kyle Kyle Allen was the primary backup, and he was awful. I thought he had 2 official interceptions, probably should have had 3. Looked abysmal. Everything about the Lions looked pretty bad except for Tesla and parts of their defense. The Chargers, on the other hand, Trey Lance had his best game ever. Um, whatever Harbaugh and Greg Roman are doing seems to have made a lot more impact than anything the 49ers did and anything the Cowboys did with Trey Lance. So he looked great. Their run game looked great all around, except for, people are going to overreact to Marion Hampton getting short yardage here. He got stuffed his first carry, but then got a little bit more his second carry, and then he was done for the game. That's fine. Like they don't want to get him hurt. This is one of I think they get 5 games because or, no, they get one extra game than normal because it's a Hall of Fame
Used to
game.
be
But
5.
but
Now it's
yeah,
4.
I was surprised that Trey Harris was only out there for like 1 target and then was gone. The other guy that they talk about in camp, Andre Lambert Smith, was out there and he looked pretty good for his possessions. The one they were raving about, when someone asked them one of the safeties about Trey Harris, he immediately went on a rant about Keandre instead. I think Keandre is definitely someone that you can't hide anymore, that people are finding out about. Uh, I like him and Trey Harris to be ahead of Quentin Johnston by the time week 1 comes around. Jeff's over there shaking his head, but it's true, Jeff. They both, to me, look better than Quentin Johnston already. So
That's fair, but Harbaugh thinks higher of Johnston because Johnston didn't play yesterday and the starters didn't play yesterday. So
I don't know if he thinks higher. He's giving him the veteran treatment. So I mean, that's fair enough. But I think we've got a little over a month left, Jeff, and I think in that time he's gonna fall down the roster a little bit. Listen,
you're hoping.
hey, I called that Lad McConkey was going to be the wide receiver 1 before the season even started, and that was 100% true.
You can be right sometimes. I'll give you that. And I never argued that Johnston was going to be a 1 in the league. It's disappointing that he's not. Don't get me wrong, because he was a first round pick. But that was never like where I always saw him as a starter in the league. So even if he doesn't make this roster, he would make another roster in a heartbeat. So that could be a trade. Falcons.
Oh my gosh, Jeff. All right. But I mean, that's pretty much my observations from the game.
I think so. If the Chargers ever cut Johnston, which I feel like you'd think that they should at some point, and let's say the Chiefs picked him up and Mahomes just threw bombs to Johnston all the time, that would just haunt the Chargers. Be another chargering.
Well, there's a good chance that they wouldn't cut him, that they would seek to trade him probably next offseason when he's on his 4th year or whatever, and try to trade him to the NFC if possible. And if he went to the Chiefs, I still wouldn't be that threatened because he hasn't proven that he can go get the ball. He waits for it to fall into the cradle. So I don't really trust him anyway.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. I was just looking at the box score, and I hate when people just look at box scores. But it seems like Naheem Hines is now going by Naheem Miller Hines. So name change, people have to get used to hearing. But it looks like Vidal might be locking up the third running back spot. He actually ran pretty well, had 2 touchdowns as well. And if you put Miller Hines at the end of that, there's your 4 backs going into the year. But I also know he likes Haskins as well, because I believe that he came from his college, right?
And from Michigan, yep.
Yeah.
I thought Haskins ran better than Vidal did. Like Haskins looked like a sledgehammer going against Detroit's defense, and Vidal looked a little slow, in my opinion. Picked up steam towards the end, but I thought Haskins was better overall. Jarrett Patterson was not anything.
Yeah, he's from UB, so close by guy. But for all the talk up of the backup quarterbacks for Detroit in camp, Hooker didn't look like he came ready to play. Like, I don't know if you saw that. Like, the beat writers were talking up how good the backup quarterbacks have been looking in camp. So it didn't translate to our screen.
Well, last year the Texans beat writers were talking about how good the defense was against the offense in camp, and the defense was going to be super elite. Well, it turned out the defense was pretty solid, pretty good, but the offensive line was awful. So maybe maybe their secondary isn't very good in camp, and that's why the quarterbacks
Yeah.
looked pretty good. I don't know.
You but 34-7 is a whooping. And I know preseason doesn't mean a ton, but these were backups versus backups. So it's very clear that the Chargers backups are better than the Lions backups, which actually shows that they have depth. So it actually says a lot about what the season could look like for the Chargers.
Well, it's either that or that the Chargers were just better coached than the Lions, which
And
would make
that could be
sense
the case all year.
because the Chargers didn't change any coaching personnel, or at least not anything major, and the Lions lost both their coordinators. So makes sense.
Yeah. And it makes sense that Lance would have a really good outing with Greg Roman. This is kind of Greg Roman's style of quarterback. So interesting. He ran the ball 3 times for 8 yards. Do you think he has a shot to be the backup to Justin Herbert, or do you think they'll go with didn't they sign?
They have Heineke as
Yeah,
well.
as well.
Heineke got the veteran treatment, but if Lance keeps this up, if he plays this well throughout preseason, I think he will be the backup. And I think if that's the case, he would deserve the backup role over Heineke.
Yeah, I mean, this system is legitimately perfect for Trey Lance. Just think of like
Well,
Tyrod Taylor and Greg Roman, and think of
Colin Kaepernick, like he reminds me a
yep.
lot of Colin Kaepernick early on with the 49ers.
Lamar Jackson had some of his best rushing seasons under Greg Roman.
Yeah.
Interesting that he's played with all these rushing quarterbacks, and now they have Trey Lance.
Well, it's also funny that I saw someone post some numbers between Herbert and Josh Allen, and apparently Herbert is faster than Josh Allen is. So he's gonna get some rushing this year too.
Didn't he get injured going into last year? So I don't know if we got like the full Monty of treatment from Justin Herbert last year, like what he's going to be.
Thought it was he got hurt late last year, and maybe that rolled into or late the year
I thought he
before, and
injured
then
his
rolled into last
back,
year.
or he hurt his ankle in preseason last year, and he was questionable for week 1. I don't know
I
if you
can't
remember
remember.
that.
No,
Yeah,
I can't
he went
remember.
into the year injured because he was one of the first injuries in camp. So he missed a full camp last year too.
Well, if you want him to throw 4,000 yards this year, it's more likely this year now that he has more weapons to throw the ball to than last year.
Yeah, I think that they're going to be a much more balanced offense this year because they actually have the weapons and the backs, and I think the efficiency is going to go up even from last year for both sides of the ball, not just or both facets of the offense, not just the passing game. I think that the run game could have a lot more lanes, and you could have big games by Najee and Hampton in the same game just by keeping them both fresh.
Wow, we've got to find out more about Najee's eye before we even consider he's a lock for the roster. Because
Yeah, the fact that they're keeping him around though says a lot because they could cut him with no penalty right now. It was a non-football injury, so nothing would need to be done. But fireworks, man! And then if you look, they're collecting Naheem Miller Hines now as well, and so he had the jet ski injury 2 years ago. They're collecting backs now that get injured in the offseason doing recreational activities. Keep Hampton away from him. Hampton's still young, impressionable. All right. We have a full slate of football next weekend, so that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, I'm stoked.
Preseason week 1 officially next weekend. But I think this was everything we wanted to cover in this episode. A lot of news early.
Yep. That does it for this episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you all for downloading and listening to this episode. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please leave us a comment and share the show. Every little bit helps.
You can find us on all podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy and with our handle at N2E Fantasy on all social media platforms. Please join our community and give us a follow. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember, it's truly never too early for fantasy football. Thank you again.
Bye, everybody.